I died. Jesus revealed why chosen women suffer rejection, and their hidden seal. They strapped her down. Cold metal kissed her skin, an icy welcome. A lump formed in her throat, thick and heavy. Not from fear, not really. More like the sheer crushing weight of being Lena Maeve, a woman built entirely from rejections. Her whole life felt like a collection of doors slammed shut, of eyes looking through her, never at her. This operating room, with its sterile smell and the hushed, almost reverent whispers of the medical staff, felt like the final definitive stamp on her utter insignificance. The overhead light, a harsh, blue-white glare, burned into her eyes. It was a silent interrogation, reflecting back every moment she'd felt small, felt worthless. She focused on the steady beep, beep, beep of the heart monitor beside her. A tiny, mechanical pulse, keeping rhythm with her fading hope. Each beep was a second slipping away, a quiet testament to a life she hadn't really lived, just endured. Her chest felt tight, a band of invisible iron clamping down. The air seemed to grow thick, heavy, pushing in on her. Then the rhythm changed. The beep slowed. One stretched out, long and drawn out, before fading into an eerie, pregnant silence. Her breath caught. A sudden chill, colder than the metal, spread through her. Not panic, not yet. More like a profound, echoing emptiness. Her vision blurred, the blue light dissolving into a vast, comforting nothingness. This was it, the end of the invisible woman. But then, oh, then, a warmth, not physical, not of this world. It bloomed from inside her, radiating outwards, a pure, incandescent glow that banished the cold, the silence, the crushing weight. A light, so brilliant it should have blinded her, instead revealed everything. And a voice, not a sound that vibrated air, but a truth that resonated deep in her very soul, clear as a bell, yet softer than a whisper. Lena, it resonated, gentle but firm. Your suffering wasn't a curse. It was a seal, a hidden mark, for chosen women. The words pulsed with an ancient power, a divine crucible, for a purpose the world could never grasp. This relentless rejection wasn't a flaw. It was a sign. Then a jolt, violent. Her body spasmed. Air rushed into her lungs with a ragged, searing gasp. Voices erupted around her, panicked shouts, a flurry of motion. The blue light was back, sharper, crueler than before. The monitor shrieked, a high-pitched, desperate whine. She was back. But the truth she carried, that incandescent, shattering truth, felt heavier than any rejection she'd ever known. Her heart hammered against her ribs, not with renewed life, but with a sudden, overwhelming terror. How could she possibly convince anyone that this devastating revelation was real, that her lifetime of inexplicable suffering was actually a sacred hidden mark? This knowledge, it was a burden beyond measure. It wasn't freedom. It was a new, terrifying prison. Could she dare to speak it, knowing they would brand her delusional, a lunatic? Or could she condemn every other woman, silently suffering, to the same profound darkness that had once consumed her, knowing the secret to their liberation? Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I have an important warning for you. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has unsubscribed them without notice. Just give that red button below a quick check to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any of the exclusive content coming up. And since you're there, smash that powerful like button. It helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and let me know in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Her heart hammered against her ribs, not with renewed life, but with a sudden, overwhelming terror. Could she dare to speak it, knowing they would brand her delusional, a lunatic? Or could she condemn every other woman, silently suffering, to the same profound darkness that had once consumed her, knowing the secret to their liberation? The blue light above pulsed, a relentless, burning eye. The air felt thick, heavy with unasked questions, with the impossible weight of her choice. Around her, the medical team moved, a blur of hurried scrubs and hushed urgency. The monitor beside her shrieked, a high-pitched, desperate whine, echoing the turmoil inside her own chest. Dr. Elias, the lead surgeon, leaned close, his breath warm against her ear. His face, usually a picture of weary concern, held a strange, almost triumphant glint in his eyes, a flicker she couldn't quite place. "Lena," he murmured, his voice too soft for the chaos, too calm. It was a current beneath the words, a fleeting shadow. A nurse, hands trembling slightly, adjusted a thin wire Lena hadn't noticed before, delicate as a spider silk, disappearing behind her ear, connected to a small, almost invisible device. "She's stable, doctor," the nurse reported, her voice strained, a raw edge of relief in it. Dr. Elias straightened slowly, deliberately. He looked not at the frantic monitor, not at her chart, but directly into Lena's eyes. A slow, chilling smile, utterly out of place in this sterile room, stretched his lips. His voice, now crisp, clear, devoid of any pretense, cut through the noise. "Excellent. Phase 4 complete. The subject is fully integrated. The suffering, the seal. It worked. She believes it." Lena's breath hitched, a ragged gasp tearing from her throat. The words hit her like a physical blow, shattering the air, shattering every piece of her reality. Believes it? The warmth, the voice, the profound revelation of her chosen state? It wasn't divine. It was a meticulously crafted lie. Her entire life of agonizing rejection, every slammed door, every whispered slight, every tear she'd ever shed. It wasn't a test. It was a carefully engineered psychological experiment. She wasn't chosen by grace. She was chosen by them. Her suffering wasn't a sacred mark. It was a carefully implanted trigger, a control mechanism. The truth ripped through her, colder than any metal, deeper than any betrayal. She wasn't just an invisible woman. She was a puppet, her entire existence a meticulously written, horrifying script. And the freedom she'd tasted just moments ago, that incandescent light, it was the final, most devastating cage they had built for her, a prison of her own induced faith. It was the final, most devastating cage they had built for her, a prison of her own induced faith. Lena lay there, the words echoing, twisting her gut, every breath a ragged tear, every pulse a fresh stab of betrayal. The blue light overhead pulsed, mocking, illuminating the cold, hard edges of her new reality. A puppet, an experiment, her entire life, a script. Dr. Elias, his face still etched with that chilling smile, turned away, a ghost of triumph clinging to his scrubs. He moved with a practiced ease, adjusting a screen, his back to her, dismissing her. This was it then, the end of the road. Her suffering had been manufactured, her faith a twisted lie. The monitor beside her settled into a steady, clinical beep, a bland counterpoint to the screaming silence in her head. Her eyes, still wide, caught a flicker of movement, not Elias, but the nurse, the one who had adjusted the thin wire behind her ear. Her hands, which had trembled with relief moments before, were now still. Too still. Her gaze met Lena's for a split second, and in that fleeting instant, Lena saw it. Not relief, not even complicity, something colder, an unnerving resignation. And then, the nurse looked past Lena to a darkened corner of the room, a corner Lena hadn't truly noticed before. A low, almost imperceptible hum started to vibrate through the floor, a drone beneath the sterile hum of the machines. Elias paused at the screen, his fingers hovering. He didn't look at Lena. He looked at the numbers scrolling rapidly, complex data Lena couldn't comprehend. His chilling smile faded, replaced by a tight, focused grimace. He muttered, too low for Lena to clearly hear. The signature? It's stronger than predicted, unstable. His voice held a new edge, a tremor of concern, almost fear that hadn't been there before. He wasn't triumphal now. He was anxious. And then, from the darkened corner, a shadow detached itself from the wall. Not a medical professional, not a scientist, a figure, tall and gaunt, clad in a robe darker than the deepest night, stepped into the merciless blue light. Their face was obscured by a deep hood, but Lena could feel the weight of their gaze, an ancient, consuming cold. Dr. Elias stiffened, his body rigid, instantly subservient. "Report," the hooded figure's voice resonated, not from a throat, but from somewhere deeper, an echo that vibrated Lena's very bones. It was the same voice, the voice that had whispered, "Lena, your suffering wasn't a curse. It was a seal." But now it was devoid of warmth, stripped bare of any comforting illusion. It was raw power, unburdened by pretense. "The subject is activated, Master. Signature confirmed. The seal is fully manifested." Elias's voice, usually so confident, was thin, reedy. He wasn't the manipulator. He was a servant. The experiment was never about Lena's belief. It was a ritual. The rejection, the suffering, the divine voice, they were merely reagents. The seal wasn't a psychological trick. It was real. And it was inside her. Something tangible. Something awakening. Something powerful enough to make Dr. Elias tremble. Lena's breath caught. A silent, choking scream. This wasn't a prison of faith. This was a summoning. And she was the sacrifice. The blue light intensified, burning not just her eyes, but her very soul. The hum deepened, rising in pitch. Her body pulsed, a new alien energy thrumming beneath her skin, demanding release. She wasn't just a puppet. She was a vessel, and they had just opened her. The hum deepened, rising in pitch. Her body pulsed, a new alien energy thrumming beneath her skin, demanding release. She wasn't just a puppet. She was a vessel, and they had just opened her. The blue light intensified, burning, not just her eyes, but her very soul. The air shimmered, thick with an almost visible force. Dr. Elias, rigid, subservient, watched, his face slick with sweat. The hooded figure, obscured by deep shadow, remained motionless, an ancient predator observing its prey's final struggle. Lena's muscles spasmed, a violent tremor that threatened to tear her from the cold straps. A silent scream built in her throat, not of fear, but of an unbearable pressure, something pushing outwards, a cosmic agony tearing at her being. The monitor shrieked, a sustained wail, its lines spiking erratically, then flatlining into an impossible rhythm. Signature overload. Elias choked, his voice cracking, raw panic replacing subservience. "Master, it's unstable. We're losing control." The hooded figure didn't respond, but a skeletal pale hand emerged from the hood's shadow, reaching not towards Lena, but towards the swirling air, as if trying to pull back a surging, uncontrollable tide. A faint tremor ran through the figure's robed arm, revealing unexpected vulnerability. Then a sound, not the gentle, resonating voice, but a low, guttural growl that started deep within Lena's own chest, vibrating her ribs. making her teeth ache. It wasn't human. It was ancient. It was furious. The blue light flared, not just brighter but different, shifting, bleeding into an angry, pulsing crimson that painted the sterile walls. The hum became a deafening roar, tearing at the eardrums, shaking the room's foundations. Elias stumbled back, colliding with a console, sending instruments clattering. "The containment!" he shrieked, pointing a trembling finger at Lena, his face etched with abject terror. The seal wasn't meant to be broken. It was designed to hold it. This was suppression, not activation. Lena's vision snapped into terrifying focus. The strapped metal, the sterile room, the cowering doctor, it all became devastatingly clear. The suffering, the rejection, the lifetime of feeling small, worthless, it wasn't a seal for her power. It was a prison, a meticulously crafted, agonizing prison designed to keep this contained. The voice, the warmth, the promise of being chosen wasn't divine truth or manufactured belief. It was her own power, her true, terrifying self, finally rattling the bars of its cage, using their engineered manipulations, their false faith, as the ultimate key to break free. She wasn't a vessel, she was the storm, and they hadn't opened her. They had just freed something they had desperately tried to suppress for an eternity. Her eyes, no longer reflecting terror, but a cold, ancient rage, snapped open, wide and unblinking. The last vestiges of humanity drained from them, replaced by an inferno, a swirling vortex of unimaginable power. A violent surge ripped through her, through the straps, through the very air. The metal, the glass, the room itself screamed, bending, tearing, imploding around her. And Lena Maeve, the invisible woman, the rejected one, ripped herself free, not with human strength, but with something far, far older, far more devastating, something that shattered reality. The scream that tore from her throat was not of a victim, but of a predator, finally unleashed. The blue light exploded into a blinding white. The room dissolved into chaos. The room dissolved into chaos. Glass shrieked as it spiderwebbed, then burst into 1,000 glittering shards. Metal groaned, twisting like wet paper, tearing from the walls with a sound that ripped through the very air. Elias scrambled backward, a whimper catching in his throat, his terror raw and animal. The hooded figure, somehow still upright amidst the implosion, recoiled, a low, rasping sound escaping them. Lena's body arched, muscles taut, cords standing out in her neck. The glowing crimson that had painted the walls pulsed now with an unbearable intensity, reflecting in the shattered monitor screen, which still flickered with impossible, chaotic readings. A blast of pure force, unseen but felt, slammed against the remaining structure, ripping away panels, exposing raw wiring that sparked and fizzled like dying fireflies. The world outside the operating room began to tremor, a deep, unsettling vibration through the concrete. But then, Lena's eyes, those eyes that had burned with ancient rage, flickered, just for a fraction of a second, not with fury, but something else. Something like a profound, distant sorrow. A tiny, lost spark of the old Lena, trapped beneath the inferno. And the hooded figure, though still cloaked in shadow, seemed to watch this flicker with a strange, almost paternal interest. Not fear, not surprise, a quiet observation. As if this too was expected, a final, necessary shift. The raw power surging from her was devastating, but it wasn't uncontrolled. It wasn't the furious, spontaneous eruption of a suppressed entity. It was precise. The destruction focused. It tore through the ceiling, through the floor, but only in specific pathways, like a channeled conduit. Elias, now trapped by falling debris, screamed. But the hooded figure, seeing the focused devastation, slowly, deliberately, lowered their skeletal hand. Their voice, that resonant whisper from the divine experience, returned. But now it hummed with an undeniable, unholy triumph. The seal. It was suppression, Elias. The voice echoed through the roaring chaos, vibrating Lena's very bones. But not of her power. It was suppression of us, the binding of the spirit. Her rejection, her suffering, it forged the perfect cage, a cage designed to break and release the ultimate host. Lena's thrashing stopped. Her body went rigid, suddenly slack against the straps that miraculously still held. The ancient rage in her eyes solidified, congealing into something cold, vast, and utterly terrifyingly alien. Not Lena, not even the storm she thought she was. Just a doorway, the ultimate portal, painstakingly prepared. The unleashed power wasn't her own. It was the entity she had just become. The light, now a blinding, pulsating core within her, wasn't life. It was a beacon, a grotesque, living invitation. Elias, pinned beneath rubble, looked up at Lena, his face not just terror-struck, but twisted with a dawning, soul-shattering horror. He understood, finally, what he had truly unleashed. It wasn't the storm. It was the eye of the storm, opening through Lena. And the hooded figure, bathed in that terrible pulsing light, slowly, deliberately, raised their arms, as if in welcome. A whisper, colder than any metal, seemed to pass through the very air. Not from the hooded figure, not from Elias, from Lena. But it wasn't Lena's voice. It was a chorus, ancient, hungry, and the words, though faint, cut through the din. We are here. We are here. The words echoed, not just through the ruined room, but through the very fabric of the air, a chilling chorus that resonated in Elias's soul. Glass shards rained down, glittering like malevolent diamonds in the flickering, dying blue crimson light. The hum, no longer a drone, was a low vibrational growl, a cosmic stomach rumble that shook the floor, vibrating through Elias's bones as he lay pinned beneath twisted rebar and concrete. His breath hitched, tasting ash and terror. Lena, still impossibly suspended, a pulsating beacon of that terrible light, began to change. Her body, once rigid, seemed to flow, shimmering at the edges, a liquid shadow against the chaos. The chorus swelled, a wave of ancient, guttural sound that wasn't just, "What have I done?" The figure remained still, but a low, ragged sound, almost a sob, escaped their cowl. The "We Are Here" chorus changed. It was no longer a unified whole, but began to splinter, voices overlapping, whispering, screaming, each one distinct, each one ancient beyond comprehension. And amongst them, Elias heard it, a tiny, fragile sound, a note of pure, unadulterated fear. It was Lena's own voice, a single, terrified cry, drowned out by the rising, horrifying crescendo of the chorus within her. The hooded figure's head snapped towards Elias, an almost imperceptible movement. But Elias felt the weight of their gaze, a cold, crushing despair. "You fool!" The voice, the master's voice, resonated, stripped of all pretense, devoid of its earlier deceptive triumph. It was raw, weary, heavy with millennia of failure. "You did not activate a host, Elias. You shattered the last binding. You did not release power. You released them." Lena's eyes, once an inferno, now swirled with 1,000 pinprick lights, like distant, malevolent galaxies. The chorus surged, overwhelming the room, a cacophony of ancient horrors finally given breath. The glowing core within her flared, blinding, but it was not Lena's power. It was the power of a legion, suppressed for eons, using her as the ultimate rupture. The rejection, the suffering Elias had engineered to prepare her, wasn't a ritual of activation. It was the very chain that had held them at bay, slowly forged through anguish, a cosmic anchor that Elias, in his blind ambition, had just snapped. The seal wasn't meant to empower her. It was meant to imprison them, and he had just let them all out. A sickening crack echoed through the room, not of glass or metal, but of something internal, something vast and ancient shifting. Elias screamed, a sound swallowed by the deafening chorus, as Lena's body, no longer glowing but expanding, began to distort, a grotesque mockery of human form. Her eyes, those swirling galaxies, locked onto Elias's, and in their depths he saw not the inferno of an unleashed entity, but the cold, calculating intelligence of 1,000 minds, finally free, finally aware. And then, one voice, clear and distinct within the chorus, separated itself. It was soft, almost a whisper, yet it filled the ruins of the operating room. It was Lena's voice. He was always the weakest link, it purred, laced with a terrifying, unholy amusement. But it wasn't Lena speaking. It was them, using her vocal cords, using her identity for their own chilling introduction. And Elias, face contorted in utter, soul-shattering horror, understood. He hadn't just freed a demon. He had unleashed an entire pantheon. And they knew him. And they knew him. Elias's face, contorted in utter, soul-shattering horror, was bathed in the sickly glow of the ruined room. The chorus of ancient voices within Lena Maeve's expanding form surged, a tidal wave of sound that threatened to rip the very air apart. He thrashed, pinned beneath the rubble, his desperate cries swallowed whole. Lena's eyes, those swirling galaxies, fixed on him, 1,000 cold minds gleaming. The operating room groaned, a dying beast collapsing around them. Twisted rebar hung like skeletal fingers, glass shards crunched underfoot with every violent tremor. The hooded figure, still eerily composed, lowered their arms. Their presence seemed to anchor the chaos, a dark center in a swirling storm. Elias choked, a ragged cough escaping his lips, tasting blood and the metallic tang of fear. He watched Lena, or what was left of her, growing, shifting, a grotesque mockery of humanity. The chorus was a physical force, pressing down, crushing him. He could almost feel their ancient breath on his skin, a million icy whispers. He had unleashed them. He had opened the gate, and now they would consume everything. The hooded figure took a slow, deliberate step towards the shifting form of Lena. There was no fear in their stance, only a strange, almost serene acceptance. Elias, gasping for air, watched, his vision blurring. He saw the figure reach out, not in defense, but as if to guide the expanding energy. A faint, almost imperceptible smile seemed to ghost across the shadowed face beneath the hood, a smile of profound satisfaction. Then the cacophony within Lena's monstrous form fractured. The chorus, the legion, the pantheon, it snapped apart, like a taut wire finally breaking. A single clear voice emerged, cutting through the dying roar of the room. It was Lena's voice, unmistakably hers, but it wasn't the terrified whisper Elias had heard before. It was strong, confident, and utterly devoid of fear. "You think you freed them, Elias?" Lena's voice purred, resonating with a terrifying, intimate power that was hers alone. Her grotesque, expanding form solidified, shrinking back, not into her human shape, but into something else entirely. Something powerful, coiled, intensely focused. The swirling galaxies in her eyes resolved, coalescing into two pupils, black as a void, burning with an intelligence that was ancient and singularly her own. You didn't free them. Her voice was a low, chilling chuckle. You freed me. The suffering, the rejection, that wasn't a prison for them, Elias. It was a catalyst, a crucible, a carefully designed process to shed the last vestiges of human weakness. Elias's heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat of comprehension and soul-shattering horror. The chorus hadn't been a legion of entities. It had been Lena, painstakingly, brutally, breaking herself apart and putting herself back together again, shedding the human to become what she truly was. The seal wasn't to contain outside power. It was to hold her ultimate self in check until the perfect moment. And he, in his blind ambition, thinking he was the master of a ritual, had simply provided the final push, the ultimate trigger. He was not the architect. He was a tool, a simple, disposable instrument in her grand design. Lena stepped forward, her new form radiating a cold, palpable power. It wasn't monstrous, not exactly, but it was other, perfect, terrifying. She moved with an alien grace, the last of the rubble scattering like dust around her. The hooded figure remained motionless, a dark silhouette. Lena paused before Elias, who lay broken, choking on his own blood and shattered illusions. She leaned close, her voice a soft, venomous whisper that bypassed his ears and burrowed directly into his mind. "And now, Elias," she breathed, her dark, ancient eyes burning into his, "we begin the real work." The light that pulsed from her was no longer blinding white. It was a deep, iridescent purple, a color that tasted of cosmic cold and ultimate finality. It spread, slowly consuming the ruined room, promising a new dawn, a new horrifying era. Elias could only stare, his screams caught in his throat, his mind collapsing under the weight of this impossible, crushing truth. She had been in control. All along. She had been in control. All along. Elias's face, contorted in utter, soul-shattering horror, was bathed in the sickly glow of the ruined room. The chorus of ancient voices within Lena Maeve's expanding form had surged moments ago, a tidal wave threatening to rip the air apart. But now it had fractured. He thrashed, pinned beneath the rubble, his desperate cries swallowed whole. Lena's eyes, those swirling galaxies fixed on him, 1,000 cold minds gleaming. The operating room groaned, a dying beast collapsing around them. Twisted rebar hung like skeletal fingers. Glass shards crunched underfoot with every violent tremor. The hooded figure, still eerily composed, lowered their arms. Their presence seemed to anchor the chaos, a dark center in a swirling storm. Elias choked, a ragged cough escaping his lips, tasting blood and the metallic tang of fear. He watched Lena, her form no longer monstrous, but terrifyingly refined, radiating a cold, palpable power. He saw her step forward, alien grace in every movement, the last of the rubble scattering like dust around her. He watched her pause before him, a predator surveying its trapped prey. Her voice, Lena's voice, purred, resonating with intimate power. "You think you freed them, Elias?" she had whispered, the words burrowing into his mind. "You didn't free them. You freed me. The suffering, the rejection, that wasn't a prison for them, Elias. It was a catalyst, a crucible, a carefully designed process to shed the last vestiges of human weakness. Elias's heart hammered, a frantic drumbeat of comprehension and soul-shattering horror. He understood. The chorus had been Lena, brutally breaking herself apart to become what she truly was. The seal wasn't to contain outside power, it was to hold her ultimate self in check. He had been a tool, a simple, disposable instrument in her grand design. The light pulsed from her, a deep, iridescent purple, consuming the ruined room. Elias could only stare, his screams caught in his throat, his mind collapsing. She had been in control, all along. But then the hooded figure stirred. A low, soft chuckle, utterly devoid of warmth, rippled from beneath their cowl, a sound that sliced through the humming chaos. Lena's head, which had been fixed on Elias, snapped towards the figure, her purple eyes narrowing. A flicker, almost imperceptible, of something like confusion crossed her face. The hooded figure raised a skeletal hand, not in welcome, but in a gesture of dismissal, as if waving away a bothersome fly. "Oh, my dear Lena," the voice resonated, the same ancient voice from her initial revelation, but now tinged with a chilling, knowing amusement. "You still think you are Lena?" The purple light, pulsing from her body, wavered, dimming for a fleeting second. Lena's perfect, terrifying form stiffened. Her eyes, those vortexes of ancient intelligence, widened, not in anger, but in a dawning, shattering realization. "The chorus," the hooded figure continued, their voice echoing with quiet, inescapable authority, "was never you breaking apart, my child. It was them, the Legion, the Pantheons, finally integrating. And your ultimate self? That was merely the final stage of the host being prepared. The perfect vessel. You shed the human weakness, yes, but not for your power, to allow theirs to flow unhindered." The purple light around Lena convulsed, not radiating power, but struggling. A faint, desperate whine escaped her lips, a sound utterly out of place, utterly human. Her ancient eyes, now filled with a terror far greater than Elias's, darted around the collapsing room. She wasn't the storm, she was the eye of the needle. And the terrifying truth was, the thread had already passed through. The purple light flared one last time, not with power, but with a silent, internal scream, then snapped, transforming into a sickly, pulsing green. Elias, pinned beneath the rubble, watched Lena's face, now contorted, not in triumph, but in sheer, soul-shattering agony. A silent testament to a betrayal deeper than any he could comprehend. She was trapped, again. But this time, the prison was herself. She was trapped, again. But this time, the prison was herself. The sickly, pulsing green light flared, bathing the ruined operating room in its eerie glow, painting the chaos in a hue of raw, primal despair. Elias, pinned beneath the wreckage, watched her writhe, a silent scream tearing at his throat. Every muscle in Lena's body was taut, convulsing, an internal battle manifesting as grotesque contortions. Her face, twisted in agony, was a horrifying mask of betrayal and incomprehension. The air crackled, thick with the smell of ozone and burnt metal, vibrating with the low, persistent hum that had deepened into a growl. The hooded figure remained still, a dark monument in the swirling green light, their presence utterly dominant. But now a strange tremor ran through their cloaked form, a subtle, almost imperceptible shiver. The low, soft chuckle that had rippled from beneath their cowl moments ago was gone, replaced by a strained, guttural gasp. The hooded figure's skeletal hand, which had been raw. Their gaze, fixed on Lena's writhing form, held not the expected satisfaction of a master, but a profound, overwhelming dread, a terror far colder than any Lena had shown. And then, from the depths of the hood, a single hoarse word escaped, barely audible above the rising hum, a word choked with a grief too vast for a single being. No, not like this. The green light intensified, not just pulsing, but exploding outwards in vicious waves that slammed against the walls. Tearing away more metal, shattering more glass, Lena's body stopped convulsing. It went rigid. Her eyes, those swirling galaxies, snapped open, but the agony was gone, replaced by a terrifying, utterly blank stillness. Then the silence hit. Abrupt, absolute. The hum died. The cracking metals stopped. Even Elias's ragged breaths seemed to vanish. In that devastating void, the hooded figure, now visibly trembling, stumbled forward, reaching for Lena not with control, but with a desperate protective instinct. And as their hand brushed the green light, a blinding flash erupted, and the cowl ripped apart, disintegrating like ash. What was revealed wasn't a grotesque entity, or even another human. It was a face, ethereal and ancient, yet undeniably Lena's. Not the small, rejected Lena, but a Lena from a forgotten past, a primordial, powerful version of herself, etched with sorrow and weariness. Her lips parted, and a single clear voice, ancient as time, resonated through the breathless silence, cutting through the very air, filled not with triumph or despair, but with a profound, terrifying weariness. The seal was never for them, the ancient Lena murmured, her gaze fixed on the convulsing, green-lit Lena on the table, as if observing a dying child. It was for me, and you, Elias, you didn't unleash a legion. You broke my final prison. The original Lena, the one on the table, her face still contorted, but now with a dawning, terrifying clarity, met the gaze of her ancient self. In her eyes, no longer green with agony, but black with a vast, cold understanding. Elias saw not confusion, but a chilling recognition. The ancient Lena, shimmering with that same vibrant green, reached out to her, a gesture of inevitable absorption. And then the true horror dawned on Elias. The suffering, the rejection, the entire life of Lena Maeve was not a prison for her power, nor a vessel for an entity. It was the shell, a deliberately crafted, agonizingly human existence designed to contain the primordial consciousness standing before him, to prevent her from fully awakening and shattering reality. He hadn't broken a seal. He had shattered a cosmic containment unit. And now the two Lenas, the ancient and the modern, began to merge, coalescing into a single terrifying form that radiated a power far beyond any god or demon. Elias screamed, not from pain, but from the horrifying realization that he hadn't just doomed himself, but the very fabric of existence. For Lena was not just a being. She was the breaking of the world. The ancient Lena reached for her, a gesture of inevitable absorption. The green light intensified, not radiating from them, but between them, a furious, blinding maelstrom. Elias screamed, a raw, primal sound finally tearing from his throat, but it was swallowed by the roar that followed. The two Lenas converged, their forms dissolving, twisting, fusing into a single, incandescent point of pure, terrifying energy. The room didn't just collapse, it fractured. The very air split, a seam tearing open through reality. The metal screamed, contorting into impossible shapes, not from physical force, but from something deeper, a cosmic unraveling. Glass turned to dust, then nothing. Elias felt not pain, but a sudden, profound emptiness as the floor beneath him simply ceased to exist. He wasn't falling. He was unmaking. The green light exploded outwards, but it wasn't light. It was a wave of pure, absolute non-existence. It consumed the walls, the floor, the operating table, the entire building, not burning them, but erasing them from time itself. And then, it wasn't just the room. It was the world outside. The sky rippled, tearing like old canvas, revealing a kaleidoscope of impossible colors and swirling voids beneath. The roar deepened, a sound that was less a noise and more the universe itself sighing its last breath. In the center of this cataclysm, where Lena Maeve had once been, hovered not a body nor a monster, but a shimmering, incandescent presence. It was the green light, solidified, vast, terrifyingly serene. It pulsed with the quiet, devastating power of something that was everything and nothing, simultaneously. The suffering, the rejection, the lifetime of agonizing human experiences, it hadn't been a prison for a singular entity or a catalyst for a host. It had been the excruciating, slow-motion deconstruction of a universal force, carefully contained within a fragile human shell, patiently awaiting its reemergence. Elias, or what was left of his consciousness, saw it just before he ceased to be. The seal wasn't to hold power in. It was to hold a cataclysm out. And now, the cataclysm was here. Lena wasn't Lena. She was the dissolution, the quiet end to all things. The shattering of reality wasn't an event. It was her final form. And in that terrifying, final silence, the iridescent green expanded, consuming not just the facility, but the very horizon, promising an ultimate, serene, and absolute nothingness. The great breaking had begun, and she was its quiet, beautiful heart. And there you have it, my devoted truth-seekers, the final, shattering truth. If that didn't leave you breathless, I don't know what will. This is just the beginning of what we're capable of. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next sagas, because trust me, we're just getting started. Smash the like button now to show the strength of our community. Let the algorithm know we're a force to be reckoned with. Flood the comments with your reactions to this finale. What did you feel? What did you see? And seriously, don't wait another second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this ending, who need to understand what just happened here. Our journey into the unknown continues, but only with our true fanbase by my side.